If you've got those three things in place, you now have moved into becoming a transformational leader, not a transactional manager. That's the big first thing here. Welcome back to another episode of the Geronimo Unfiltered podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about having one-on-ones with your team. Now, this is something that either most people don't do or they do it, but it's just there to tick a box. Now, I was a team leader in multiple different roles in really big companies here in Australia, and now with my own sort of 3 companies along the way. One-on-ones was something that when we started doing this properly, I noticed a step change in the performance of my team, and therefore, as a direct correlation, their productivity improved, the team retention and team morale was much higher, and ultimately that all led to higher profitability in all my businesses. And to be honest, it also, helped me speed up the process of letting go of absolute dimwits that we had in our company. But through the process of having these one-on-ones, it made it really apparent that, they didn't have what it took to meet the standards that we had in our companies. So, if they're done correctly, these one-on-ones are going to be the thing that are going to motivate your team to do a much better job than you ever could. Get them excited to wake up every single day to come to work for you and to work for each other, and to make sure that they actually get the result. They win. They win for themselves and they win for you. But so many people miss the opportunities to have these one-on-ones and to kind of experience that development and that growth in their people. Instead of getting the team excited to work with you and with the rest of your team, you're the reason why they want to leave. Now, lots of people in my academy tell me that they have one-on-ones, and then when I ask them, okay, when do you have them? Show me your calendar. Open up your calendar and show me. They can't show me. So this episode is going to, for those of you that have no idea what a one-on-one is, it'll sort of help you understand what they are, how important they are. And also, lots of people have told you that you should be having one-on-ones, but not many people have told you how to have them, which is what I'm going to do in this episode starting right friggin' now. So first things first, to have a good one-on-one, a solid one-on-one, it's not just a catch up or a chat. Let's go for a coffee. You need to have set, number one, delegated outcomes to people. So the person that you're meeting with, you should have delegated an outcome to them as part of a KPI of their role. So for example, if you're going to have a one-on-one with a person doing sales in your company, then you need to make sure that you've delegated the outcome of sales to that person. So you can have a holistic and complete conversation with them about how their performance is going against the targets that you've set them. And the second thing is the targets. You've got to make it really clear to them what the measurement is of this task or outcome that you've delegated to them. Again, back to sales. If sales is the outcome that you've delegated, the measurement is 40% conversion rate, as an example. And then the number 3 thing that turns it from a catch-up to a proper one-on-one is the coaching element for that person. If you've got those 3 things in place, the outcome, the measurement, and the coaching, of which the one-on-one is that coaching component, you now have moved into becoming a transformational leader, not a transactional manager. So that's the big first thing here. People will often ask me, how often do you have one-on-ones with your team? It depends. It depends on the person. If you might have a new person or if you have someone that's a bit greener, a bit more of a rookie, a bit less experienced, they might need weeklies. Sometimes it's a fortnightly, or sometimes it's monthly, sometimes it's quarterly if they've been with you for ages, and maybe it's your general manager and they're fucking flying. And it's just making sure that you are tracking them to some big goals. So it depends and it changes. It doesn't have to be uniform. I disagree with the thought that everyone has to be every week because it's just irrelevant. Like, let's not have meetings for the sake of it. Okay. Now, my belief is the context and the pre-frame by which the one-on-ones happen are really important. Everyone wants to know what the agenda is, but before we get to the agenda, I really believe that the person that you're having a one-on-one with needs to really feel that you actually give a fuck about them as a person, what they want to achieve in life. That's the second thing that I would challenge you with. Like, do you really know, heading into that one-on-one with that person, do you really know what they want to achieve out of life? Where they want to be this time next year. So you're not just giving them performance and feedback on what they did wrong, but actually you're helping them become a better person. And you're helping them move directly towards that goal. And real talk is, I say to my team all the time, if your end goal is not in this company, that's absolutely fine. But let me help you get there. I'd rather help you get there than it happen behind my back. And, I've completely misread the room and think that you want this way. And so I'm going to coach you towards that, but actually you want this, because you're just going to create a gap, and the gaps create friction. And trust me, we've all had, you and I, we've all had people that, in your team that you start having team problems, and it's really costly. So I'd rather and I'd rather they know that you really care about them. So my question to you, and homework for you, if you're listening to this in the car or whatever, is I want you to make sure that you are clear on the goals of 100% of your team, like specific goals, even if it means, not with you. So that's the second thing. Now, the third thing is the actual agenda and the anatomy of the one-on-one. Now, I structure it in 4 steps. The first step is we go through their performance. So that's their performance against our core values that we have in the company, their performance against their roles and their KPIs in the company, what they're smashing and what I want them to keep doing more of, and what they need to improve on to get a bit closer to hitting their targets or to exceeding their targets. We often draw a performance and values matrix where, high performance, high values is where we want to be. We want to make sure that we're always pushing people up towards that top right of the values and performance quadrant. But we also make it really clear that it's not enough that you are hitting your KPIs, but you're low on values, because that's going to be an issue for the team. And we will always, and we have in the past, we've always let people go, even though they are consistent high performers, but they're low on values and they become toxic to the team. So values and performance, we're always pushing people to the top right. So that's the first thing. It's feedback on their performance. Now, this is where you bring in your knowledge and your deep care on what they care about. So when you're giving that feedback, you're giving that feedback as it relates to progressing them towards their goal, right? So if someone's big goal is to knock their role out of the park, to generate more money so they can spend more time with their family or take more holidays with their family, then you obviously want to talk about like them hitting their targets so that you can pay them more, so that they can take more holidays with their family. And instead of paying for a cabin at a caravan park, they can actually stay at the Sheraton when they go to SeaWorld, as an example. Or if someone's actually not motivated by money, that they want, profile, or they want to move up in the company, then when you're giving them that feedback, you are giving them through the lens of, being able to handle bigger roles in the company, being able to kind of give other people that feedback as they take on the mantelpiece of becoming the transformational leader. Step 2 is I start asking some questions to sort of like dig around what's around the feedback. The first question I ask is like, what is your biggest fear right now as it relates to your role? When you sit down and do it, like, what is your biggest fear right now? What I'm looking for there is I want to understand what their weaknesses are. I want to understand what they hate about the role. I want to understand some areas of development that I can help them out with. And further to that, for some more situational planning, I actually asked them, if you were to hand in your notice tomorrow, like your resignation tomorrow, what would be the reason? Now, too many leaders just head in their sand about like any issues with their team because you really don't want to push them in case they leave, and then you're going to have to replace them, and it's, you're finding it really hard to find good people, which just means that you haven't built a skill yet. Or they just don't want to have those tough conversations. What I do, instead of having the tough conversation later on, is I bring it forward when it's a neutral environment and it's not emotionally charged. And I say, if you were to hand your resignation notice in tomorrow, what would be the reason? And then whatever they come up with, well, I bloody hate working with Sally. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know. What's going on between you and Sally? Like, you can prevent tiny little things from becoming massive things if you get to it early enough. So I think they're really good questions. It's around fear, and it's about, situationally, if you were to leave tomorrow, what would be the reason? Now, the third thing, step 3, is we talk about personal development. Now, this is the biggest thing about these one-on-ones. It's really important that these one-on-ones are for them, not for you necessarily. I want to make sure, and all my team know, like, they control the meeting. They're in charge of taking their own notes, and they're in charge of the personal development sheet that, we use as the running commentary of all these sessions. They need to own it. They got to update it beforehand. They need to own it. If they're not getting, much out of the session, that's on them, because I want them to take some ownership on their own development. But in step 3, we talk about personal development. It's what goals do they want to achieve in the next 12 months, this time next year. I'm always going this time next year or their birthday. It's a really cool thing, because I say to them, it's my job at your birthday when we're celebrating Chin Chin. You can't fucking believe what you are capable of right now. Like, because a year ago, you couldn't do this. You didn't know you could do this. And now you're a weapon at it. And we've got all these results to prove it. And now we're here celebrating you and how much you've grown as a person. And so once they can stay at their goals, which they've got to come prepared to do that, the second thing is, what are they doing to help themselves get there? You see what we've done there? What are they doing to help themselves get there? And I want a list. So I want to know what books they're reading to get themselves out. I want to know what audio books they're listening to. I want to know what podcasts they're listening to. Obviously this one. I want to know what they're doing themselves to get themselves there, because I'm really big on reciprocity, and I don't want to work harder for you for your benefit. So that's what kind of brings up the standards and the importance of these personal development sessions or these PD sessions is what are they doing themselves? I want them to take full ownership. And then once they understand what those things are, then my question is, what can I do? What can the company do to help you win more and help you move towards that direction? And if they really feel the care that you have in them when we get to this part of the agenda, honestly, I have seen outstanding expressions of performance outputs, productivity, and care beyond what a typical employee would generally produce. And then number 4 is we dig in a little bit further and some more of the tough stuff. This is more of the concrete feedback. This is really important. Do not skip this, okay? So first, Brené Brown, who is a fantastic author, Dare to Lead, one of her books, talks about being clear is the kindest thing you can do. Being clear is kind. So many people struggle with this part right here, to the point where Rowan, our leadership coach in the program, they've done a whole segment around not avoiding the tough stuff. This is the tough stuff, right? So when you give feedback, I want you to be direct. I want you to be clear, and I want you to come through with the intent of, being kind and helping them get better. And the reason why you're giving them this feedback is because you're holding them to a standard that you know that they are capable of achieving. And they're going to thank you for this. Maybe not in the moment, but later on, you're going to be the best boss they've ever had. Now, a way you can do this first, you can do what Dan Martell has taught me, doing a clearing session. So firstly, you want to give them the opportunity to give you feedback. So questions like, what part of my leadership or the culture do you wish you could change, or would you respond better to? As part of being a leader, the reality is, and much to a lot of my mistakes along the way, you can't lead everyone the same. Sometimes you've got some team members that respond really well to strong feedback and, more of a sports team like coach vibes. And you got some that want to feel like it's less, confronting and more side by side. It's really understanding how each of your players, each of your team members respond in the best way. So a question like that, what part of my leadership do you wish you could change? Or what part of my leadership style might you respond better with? Now you're giving them an opportunity to give you feedback, okay? What part of the culture do you wish you could change? You're opening up the room for them to go first, to give you feedback. Because you are being vulnerable, you're like, hey, I'm here, I'm open, I'm accepting, where can we do better? Then inevitably they feel like they've been heard first and it hasn't just been this, one-way traffic. Then naturally what happens is it becomes your turn, because they'll go, well, what feedback do you have for me? Great. This is when I want you to be really clear and stop avoiding the tough stuff, okay? Clear is kind, clear is kind, clear is kind. Write that down. Clear is kind, clear is kind. Now, where could you be better? Where do I want to see a change in their behaviors, in their perspective, etc.? Dan Martell taught me the coach framework. So the COACH, coach, right? The CO is core issue. So you start with a bit of a, hey, when this happened the other day, well, the core issue to that is this. The core issue to you behaving like that is it tells the rest of the team that even if you're in a senior position, it looks like I'm okay with my leader not following the values of the company. Then the A is the anecdote. So then you tell them a story about when that's happened in the past and it's resulted in a negative outcome, or when you might be a bit more vulnerable and you might share a position where back when you were working, when that was you, what you didn't realize was this, but I was lucky enough that my manager at the time pulled me up on it because I had my best interest at heart, and they say, hey, listen, mate, pull your socks up because you're not actually following our own values here and you're supposed to be one of the leaders. So then the change, which is the CH, the last CH in coach. So the change I want to see is, and then you make it really clear what the specific change that you want to see happen in that person. And then you leave with getting their agreement and their commitment and their alignment before you leave and before you end the meeting. So you both feel like you've watched the same fucking movie. The disaster here is you feel like you've had a good chat. They heard something completely different. You walk out and you've both watched completely different movies. They should be updating their notes and they will commit to their own actions and you will commit to yours by the time you meet up again the next time. So step 1, you go through their performance, how they're going against KPIs, etc. Step 2, you go through what's their biggest fear right now. If you were to hand in your notice, what would be the reason? Step 3, you talk about their PD, their personal development, and what they're going to do along that way and what the company can do to help them. And step 4 is you go through some of the tough stuff, if it needs to come up. And if you do need to bring it up, a simple framework so you don't just waffle, because you're feeling a bit insecure about it or you're inexperienced with giving the tough stuff. Use the coach frameworks. Core issue, anecdote, change. Get their agreement, set the notes, rock and roll, high five. So the best one-on-ones give you your time back, gives you your sanity back so you can keep elevating up into your business, keep replacing yourself out of those key roles. And now you're really building a team. You're building a real business now that can actually grow without you. So, the role of a leader is like to build the people, to build the business. Your team's going to be way more empowered. They're going to be sticking around for longer. They're going to produce better profits for you. They're going to enjoy their work a lot more. They're going to be proud to work for you. So set them up for success so they know what they're responsible for, what they're getting measured against, and what the future looks like. And they actually feel that you care about their future. Now, if you loved this and you want to explore being a better leader, even more so than this, we've got some epic longer format workshops, masterclasses with Rowan, our leadership coach in our program, my personal leadership coach and dear friend of mine, which I'm going to pop in the show notes. And I'll highly recommend that you read books such as Multipliers, Dare to Lead, and also Legacy. And I'll put the links to those books in the show notes as well. These are kind of the must reads for people in our academy that are ready to level up as leaders. See you in the next episode.